Welcome to Whispering Shadow, a place where forgotten souls, cursed bloodlines, and haunted memories are brought back to life through chilling tales. Here, every whisper hides a story, and every shadow conceals a secret waiting to be uncovered. If you dare, stay with us until the end of tonight's tale. But remember, once you step into the darkness, there is no turning back. Deep in the central highlands of Vietnam, hidden beneath a constant veil of mist, lies a forest the locals call the Nine Peaks. From afar, 9 mountain ridges rise like horns, stabbing into the sky. By day, the forest looks majestic, but at night, the entire place is drowned in an eerie glow, as if the air itself was alive with shadows. The villagers believe this is no ordinary forest. It's sacred ground, home not only to wild beasts, but to things that are not human. Years ago, a group of woodcutters wandered in and never returned. Only their clothes were found, hanging neatly from tree branches. The elders whispered, the forest spirits, the Ngai, they took them. Ngai, the word itself, sends shivers down the spine. In these lands, people believe Ngai are powerful roots, or spirits that can be raised with blood and bound by dark rituals. Some Ngai make a person fall deeply in love. Others eat away at flesh until the victim withers to nothing. But the most terrifying of all is the Ngai of the Nine Peaks. This Ngai, they say, can bend both men and spirits to its will. But once you feed it your blood, your soul is tied to it forever. Raise it wrong and it turns on you, dragging not just you but your entire bloodline into the grave. Our story tonight follows a young man named Hung, born and raised on the edge of that cursed forest. All his life, he heard whispers of the Nine Peaks Ngai, and like all forbidden things, the more he was warned, the more he wanted to see it with his own eyes. The tale begins on a rainy season, when the dirt roads turned to red mud, and the village air smelled of mold and dampness. Word spread that an old Ngai master, an outcast who lived alone on the mountain, was seeking a disciple. And it was in that moment, when ambition and curiosity overcame fear, that Hung stepped onto a path from which there would be no return. Hung was only 23. His parents were poor farmers, living in a tin roof house at the edge of the forest. They worked the fields, wove cloth, sold what little they could. Life was simple, humble, but safe. But Hung, he wanted more. From childhood, he'd hide behind the pillars of the communal house, watching shamans chant over the sick, blowing charms, spitting chewed leaves into bowls of water. Sometimes the patient recovered. Other times, they wasted away and died. Hungi watched with wide, fascinated eyes, terrified but hungry for more. Stay away from Ngai, the elders always warned. It's easy to learn, impossible to quit. If it turns against you, it won't just kill you, it'll kill everyone tied to you. But to a restless young man, those words sounded less like warnings and more like temptation. When rumors spread about the Ngai master on the mountain, Hung couldn't resist. They said he was ancient, living in a shack surrounded by bones and feathers guarded by spirits. Many young men had gone there before, but none lasted. The old man would simply glance at them, and their courage would melt into the dirt. One stormy evening, with rain soaking the red soil, Hung set out with a black chicken, a jar of rice wine, and a small bundle of rice. He trudged barefoot through the mud, his clothes plastered to his skin, but his heart burned with desire. The shack stood in a clearing, lit by the glow of oil lamps. Charms hung from the eaves, their paper faded and torn. The ground was littered with bones and tufts of fur. The stench was thick, blood and rot. Hung knelt and whispered, "Master, I want to learn Ngai." A hoarse voice rasped from inside. "Young man, do you even know what you're asking for?" Heart-pounding, Hung answered, "They say whoever holds the Nine Peaks Ngai can control everything. I want that power." The old man stepped out, thin as a shadow, hair tangled, his eyes clouded white like mist. He tapped his cane on the ground, To command others, you must first command yourself. To bind the Ngai, you must feed it your own blood. Can you endure that? Hung swallowed hard, then nodded. The old man's lips curled into a chilling smile. Remember this. Ngai is not a pet. It is alive. Once it drinks your blood, you are bound together until death. And if you falter, it will devour you. Led Hung inside. At the center of the shack stood a clay jar covered with red cloth. When the cloth shifted slightly, Hung glimpsed a faint green glow, something moving inside. From tonight onward, the master said, every night you will cut your finger and drop 3 drops of blood into this jar. Do it for 39 nights without fail. No other blood will do. Break the rule, and you will pay the price. The old man's eyes pierced through him like blades. For a moment, Hung's stomach churned with dread, but ambition smothered fear. He bowed his head, accepting the ritual. That night he carried the jar home. Outside, rain poured endlessly. Inside his chest, a storm raged even louder. He had no way of knowing. In that moment, the seed of doom had already been planted. At first, everything seemed quiet. Tum returned home with the small bundle of herbs, carefully hidden inside an old wooden chest at the foot of his bed. He told his wife, Lan, that it was simply a rare medicinal root he'd found during his trip to the highlands. She believed him. Why wouldn't she? For weeks, nothing strange happened. The nights were peaceful. The roosters still crowed at dawn, and the villagers continued their daily routines. But then, small things began to shift. It started with the dogs. The family had 3 of them, loyal mutts that usually barked at strangers passing by. One night, all 3 began howling in unison, their noses pointed toward Tum's room. Their bodies shook as though they had seen something that humans could not. Lan tried to shoo them away, but no matter how hard she pushed, the dogs refused to leave the yard. By morning, one of them had died, its body stiff, mouth foaming with traces of black blood. Then came the dreams. Tum would wake drenched in sweat, gasping for air. He would see in his sleep a figure standing at the edge of his rice field, tall, faceless, with long black hair that swayed even when there was no wind. Each night the figure stood closer. Each night the whispers grew louder. 9 flame, 9 roots, 9 lives owed. The voice was neither male nor female. It was as if the forest itself had learned to speak, pressing its sound directly into his skull. Tum would jolt awake, only to find faint soot-like marks on the floor, as though something had been burning near his bed. Lan noticed his changes. His skin grew pale, his eyes sunken. He would often stare blankly at the wooden chest where the herbs were kept. Sometimes, in the dead of night, she found him sitting cross-legged in front of it, muttering words she did not understand. One evening, a neighbor dropped by to borrow some tools. The man entered the house, but as soon as he stepped across the threshold, his body froze. His face turned ashen. Without a word, he backed away, trembling, and muttered, "Brother Tum, there's something in your house, something watching me." From that day forward, the neighbors began to avoid them. Children no longer played near their yard, and even the old women who used to gossip with Lan refused to linger. An invisible wall had risen around their home, one built from fear and whispers, and then the accidents began. First, it was their buffalo, found dead in the field, its eyes wide open, staring at nothing. Then the rice harvest turned black, rotting, before it could even be stored. Finally, one night, their youngest daughter, barely 5 years old, woke up screaming. When Lan rushed to her side, she found the child's tiny arms covered in bruises, shaped like fingers. Yet, no one had touched. Her desperation consumed the family. Lunk begged her husband to burn the herbs, to throw them into the river, to let go of whatever curse he had brought home. But Tim refused. His voice grew cold, his words sharp. "You don't understand," he said, clutching the chest. "This is power, Power for our family. We will never be poor again." But as he spoke, the shadows in the corners of the house seemed to stretch longer, darker, and deep within those shadows something moved, something that had been waiting patiently, feeding silently, and it was only just beginning. The storm came without warning. That night, the sky split open with thunder, and rain lashed the village in heavy sheets. Inside Term's house, the air felt even heavier than the storm outside. The wooden chest trembled on its own as though something inside was struggling to break free. Team sat cross-legged before it, a knife in hand. His finger was already bleeding, drops of crimson falling into a small ceramic bowl. His lips moved in a chant. Words that weren't his own but had wormed their way into his mind. Lan clutched their daughter, sobbing. "Stop this, husband, please, it's killing us." But Tum didn't hear her. His eyes were rolled back white, empty. His voice deepened, layered, as though someone or something was speaking through him. Suddenly, the chest burst open. Dadia. Foul smell of rot filled the house. From inside the chest, roots slithered out like snakes, black and pulsing with veins of red light. They writhed across the floor, wrapping around Tum's arms, his legs, his chest. He screamed, not in fear, but in ecstasy, as the roots pierced his skin and burrowed inside. The oil lamp flickered wildly, shadows dancing along the walls. For a moment, Lan thought she saw faces in those shadows, faces of people long dead, their mouths open in endless screams. Then came the voice. "The blood has been given. The pact is sealed. The 9 peaks claim their price." The ground shook violently. Clay pots shattered. The roof groaned as if the house itself were being torn apart. Lan tried to run, dragging her daughter, but a door slammed shut with a force so strong it splintered the frame. She turned back, just in time to see Tum rise to his feet. His body was twisted, veins bulging black beneath his skin. His mouth stretched into a grotesque grin that was not his own. The roots pulsed inside him, glowing faintly, like fire trapped beneath flesh. He staggered toward them, each step heavy, unnatural. His voice, if it could still be called that, echoed in layers. "Do not run, wife, do not hide. You belong to me now. You and the child," Lan screamed. She pressed her daughter against her chest and prayed, not knowing to whom she prayed, only begging for help. The storm outside roared louder, the wind howling like a chorus of the damned. And then, silence. The oil lamp went out. Darkness swallowed. The room. In that suffocating black, only one thing could be heard. The sound of roots slithering, creeping across the wooden floor, closing in on them. By morning, the storm had passed. The village awoke to clear skies, but something was wrong. Neighbors noticed that no smoke rose from Tam's chimney, no rooster crowed, no sound of life came from the house at the forest's edge. At first, they thought the family had gone to the fields early, but as the hours passed, unease spread. Finally, a few brave men gathered their courage and went to check. What they found, no words could fully describe. The front door hung ajar, split down the middle. The floor was soaked with mud and something darker, something that smelled of iron. The wooden walls were covered in streaks of black soot, like handprints burned into the planks. In the center of the room lay the wooden chest, cracked open and empty. Tom was gone. His wife and child, gone. No bodies, no signs of struggle, only the echoes of something unnatural that had passed through the place. But the dogs refused to enter. They stood outside, whining, tails between their legs, eyes fixed on the shadows inside. From that day on, the house stood abandoned. Weeds grew tall around it, windows shattered one by one. The roof slowly rotted away. Villagers avoided the path, leading past it. Children who dared each other to go near swore they heard whispers in the dark. 9 flames, 9 roots, 9 lives owed. Some nights, travelers claimed to see a dim green light flickering from within the ruins, like fireflies, trapped in glass. Others said they heard the cries of a woman or the laughter of a child carried on the wind. And once, only once, a hunter swore he saw Toom himself standing at the edge of the forest. His body was no longer human. His skin was pale and stretched, thin veins glowing faintly beneath it. Roots jutted out from his arms like thorns. His eyes were hollow, yet they burned with a sickly green light. He spoke just one sentence before vanishing into the trees. The 9 peaks are hungry still. Since then, no one dares to speak his name aloud. The villagers say the curse of the 9 peaks. Jai cannot be broken, only passed on, each generation feeding its hunger, each victim becoming part of its roots. And so, the forest waits. It waits for the next soul foolish enough to seek its power. This was Whispering Shadow, and you have just heard the tale of the 9 peaks Ngai. If you walk alone tonight and you hear whispers in the dark, remember, some shadows are not empty. Some shadows are watching.